All right, so I wanted to take a few moments and talk about signing people on the spot. So you're at an appointment and it's going great, and you share marketing and you really want team members, you want this opportunity to change people's lives. What do you do? Okay, and so let's talk first about the two ways that we sign people. Number one is we sign people on the spot. Number two is we sign people through follow-up. And follow-up, I'm going to explain to you guys what that means at the end of the video. I'm not going to be touching on it as much. What I'm really going to be talking about today is signing people on the spot. So what I want you to know is that people will sign on the spot, okay? And so if you are consistently seeing faces and you're consistently holding appointments and you're not signing people on the spot, something is going on, because people do sign on the spot. So let's dissect that. So I believe it's one of two things if people are not signing on the spot. Number one is your confidence is not assertive enough to let them know that that's an option. And number two, it could be your own personality coming across and projecting onto them. So one of my favorite quotes is, transfer your skills, not your fears. And so let's say that you tend to be a C or an S personality, which is a lot of the people that end up being in Mary Kay, more than half. And so if that's your personality, and so you're more safety, you need more information, you need time to make decisions, your marketing could be coming across that way because it's what you needed. For example, I am very strong at signing people on the spot, but my personality by default is very high D, very high I. And so I'm very dominant and influential, and I'm impulsive. And so it's easy for me to help other people make impulsive decisions because I'm impulsive. Does that make sense? And so let's talk about how you can transfer your skills and just share the opportunity without bias, but not transfer your own fears or say things like, well, I had to think about it, or I thought about it for a few months and then I decided to do it, right? Because then it makes other people think that's the normal process. Saying things like, do you need to think about it? Okay, you're suggesting that signing on the spot is not something that they should be doing. And so really start thinking about what you say and why you say it. Is it a confidence thing? Is it a personality thing? Are you transferring your fears or your own perspective and not your skills? Okay, so first I'm going to talk about when you're doing marketing close in a group. Okay, so you're at a skincare class. The number one thing that I want to say, you guys, is it does not take accolades or experience or whatever to build a team. Okay, it doesn't. If you have ever sold, I remember Alicia Sansone saying this, if you've sold anything, you're way more successful than they are in Mary Kay. So if you've sold even one item, you can recruit them, you can do it. And so I want to break it down for you guys. So I share my marketing in a group at the very end of my skincare class. And then when we sit down individually, at a skincare class, I'll talk to them about signing up or whatever, okay? So let's talk about when you're sharing marketing in a group. Now, some people share marketing, they do their iStory. Some people play like my marketing video, and then people fill out a survey or they get questions. Some people do a game like Mrs. Cab. Okay, whatever you're doing, these are some of the hot words or phrases that I really believe help seal the deal when you're doing marketing, okay? So number one, I always say people think more about getting married and buying a house than starting a Mary Kay business. And if people thought as hard about getting married than they did about starting a Mary Kay business, our statistics would be a lot better in this country, okay? I know that's kind of touchy, whatever, but it kind of puts it into perspective. Like, oh my gosh, why am I overthinking this $100 decision? Now, I'm not telling you all my marketing buzzwords. I'm only giving you the ones that will help them make a decision today, okay? So that's number one. The second one is I like to be relatable. And so I will straight up ask people, have you ever spent $100 on something dumb? I don't care how much money you have. You could be super broke, you could be super loaded, but people spend money on dumb stuff, right? And so I say, how many of you have ever spent $100 on something dumb, okay? And most everyone will raise their hands. And I always share a story and I say, oh my gosh, one time I spent $100 on this powder that you sprinkle on your food that is supposed to make you eat less. And then I was so embarrassed that I spent money on that. I would hide it from everyone in my life. And then anyway, it was a disaster. It was the dumbest thing I've ever spent $100 on. And so I just kind of, to get them to laugh and to calm down and to get them to see that it's only $100 and we've spent $100 on way dumber things before. Okay, the second thing is I talk about getting what I want. Okay, so maybe you don't have an extra $100 for a starter kit right this second. Maybe you want to wait till payday, maybe, you know, whatever. And I don't care, again, if you're rich or you're super broke. A lot of people don't have an extra $100 because the more you make, the more you spend, right? And so I'll usually say like, okay, I don't know if any of you are like this, but when I want something, I find a way to get it. Is anyone else like that? Okay, and then people will raise their hands. I love doing things where people are interacting with me. And I'll say, I remember one time I wanted a puppy and my husband said, well, it's not in the budget. And the puppy cost $800. And guess how long it took me to come up with an extra $800 in our budget? 4 hours, okay? My glasses are crooked. Because when women want something, we figure out a way to get it. And so that's what I tell them is, I don't believe you that $100 is really an issue if this is what you want, because I know if you want it, you'll come up with the money, okay? That's another one. Then I ask them, let's do a best and worst case scenario, okay? What is the worst possible thing that can happen? Worst possible thing if you get your starter kit. And sometimes if it's like a small group, I'll ask them. And other times I kind of answer for them. I'm like, okay, so worst case scenario, worst case, okay? You're terrible at this, no one buys anything. That's what I thought when I started. Worst case scenario, I just spent $100 on $400 worth of product. That's like an amazing Groupon, right? $400 on or $100 on $400 worth of product that I'm going to use anyway. So that's a really, really good Groupon. So that's worst possible case scenario, okay? Best case scenario. What is the best thing that could happen if you tried this? They make the cars for someone. Someone has to drive them. What if you get out of debt? What if you can go on a vacation? What if you can afford ballet classes for your kids? What if you can buy a better home? What if you can move? What if you can pay off your debt? You know, like, what is the best case scenario? You could be happy. You could have confidence. You could have more friends. What is the best case scenario? Okay. Then I always say, this is like going on a blind date, okay? It's like going on a blind date. You're not getting married to Mary Kay. It's like going on a blind date. You go on a blind date, which is your launch party, okay? And you see if you like it. And if you like it, you go on another date. And if you don't like it, you never have to call it again. And then I say, I hope you don't ever do that. But it's not about this life-altering decision. It could potentially become one, but initially, it's just like going on a date to see if there's something there, okay? Okay, then I always say, sometimes things aren't in the packaging that we thought they would be in. If you told me 10 years ago that this is what I would be doing with my life, I would have laughed at you, okay? And now I could not imagine not having this in my life. And so if anything that I've said tonight or anything that you've heard tonight, you had a little stir or you had a little nudge, that means you need to try it. That means you need to go for it and you need to go on that blind date and see where it takes you. Because it is so much better to know that you tried than to always wonder if that could have been the thing you were meant to do. It's always better. And so those are just some of the things that I say that help people make a decision today in a group, okay? I always say things too, like decision makers tend to have better, faster success in Mary Kay because they don't overthink it. They just go, they dive in, they learn later, and they see whether they like something or not. And so I tell people I'm looking for decision makers. I love to work with decision makers, okay? So if you're bold enough to say that, that's okay too. Okay, and then the last part of what I want to go over is the individual close. So that was all in a group, okay? The individual close, the number one thing that I would say is be assertive. And it's very different being assertive than being pushy. Pushy is you're literally manipulating or talking someone into something. Being assertive is just speaking truth into someone. So saying things like, oh my gosh, you would be phenomenal at this. I have sat down with people and looked at the back of their card and said, oh my gosh, I am so grateful that you wrote a B because I had my eye on you. I just knew that you would be so good at this. And so I'm so grateful that you're interested. Or I would love to have you on my team. You're the exact type of woman that I look for to work with. These are the characteristics that I noticed in you that are just, we're gonna do so good together. We're gonna be great power partners, okay? The other thing that I like to ask them before I even say like, are you ready to sign your agreement is, what is the first thing you'll buy when you make your first $1,000? Like, I wanna know what you're gonna spend it on. This is so exciting, okay? Then I will pull up the online agreement and I say, okay, well, here's the online agreement. Go ahead and fill it out. And if she hesitates or if she says, oh, I don't know if I'm ready yet, okay, or whatever, then I say, okay, no problem at all. What additional info do you need to know to make a decision? And then I just wait and I stay quiet. And remember, silence is okay, so just stay quiet. And if she's like, I don't know, okay, this is where you can either set up a share with your director, but you do it like that day, or like the next morning, like it has to be done quick. Or she might say like, well, I just want to make sure my husband is okay with it. Okay, two things I would say. Number one is, what do you think your husband would say? Okay, and number two is, do you always ask your husband to spend $100? Or would you have to ask your husband if you wanted to spend $100 in product? And I don't say it in a condescending way, because if they say, yes, I do, I totally respect what people do with their finances. I more so am asking because if she says, well, no, he said I could totally buy product, in which case then I can say this is non-committal. So instead of buying $100 worth of product, which he was okay with, since you're interested in doing the business anyway, get $400 worth of product for $100 and then talk to him if the business is something that's gonna work for you. And so that is another option. And then sometimes if it's a really young girl, she might say, oh, I have to talk to my parents. In which case I would say, I totally respect that. Just remember that this is you and this is your business. And at some point in your life, you're gonna have to make decisions for yourself. And remember that your parents have most likely never started a Mary Kay business before. So they can only give you advice on what they have experience with and what they have personally done. So if they haven't done it, but they want some advice, or maybe they wanna talk to me, I'm more than happy to do that, okay? And so those are some of the things that I say on the spot. So I hope that gives you some terminology and it's helpful. And finally, what I want to tell you is what is and what is not a follow-up. I'm not going to go over all the follow-up strategies in this video, but here's what I'm going to tell you is most people, I would say 60% of people are going to need some sort of follow-up. So 40% might sign on the spot, but 60% won't. So think of it this way. If you're not signing anyone on the spot, you're losing 40% of people, because there's some people that if you lose them that day, they won't come back, okay? If you don't sign them that day and they're an impulsive person, they will fall in love with something else 5 minutes later. And so you've got to get them on the spot, okay? But on the other hand, if all you're good at, which was my flaw for sure, my biggest flaw, if all you're good at is signing people on the spot, you could be missing 60% of the people that would have potentially signed through the follow-up, okay? Now, I want to tell you that on average, before someone signs, if they're not going to sign on the spot, on average, it's going to take 4 layers for them to sign. So 1 was that skincare class, okay? 2 would be like a follow-up sharing appointment with your sales director. 3 and 4 cannot be text messages, okay? I hear people say all the time, oh, I've been layering this girl for a year. And I'm like, what does that mean? Because if you've just been texting her or emailing her, that is not a follow-up. And so really think about what that means. It's inviting her to a unit meeting, a color clinic, a guest event of some sort. It's getting her in front of you. It's inviting her to Pizza and Possibilities or mimosas and makeovers at your house or whatever. Something where she gets to be in person around the energy that made her consider it in the first place. So, you know, we always hear the fortune is in the follow-up, and so I want to make sure that you know what exactly a follow-up is. It is not just you texting, because you guys, I will tell you, for me, if something got my energy all excited, them texting me is not going to get it back. It's going to be me being in a similar environment that made me consider it in the first place. So really think about that when you consider how you're following up with your people, okay? Okay, well, I hope you found this helpful, and good luck signing some peeps on the spot. Bye!